Hello, Bonnie.
Hello, we'll start in about 3 minutes.
Okay.
I thought I opened it. Let's see. What is this for all of them? Oh, weird. Strange.
Welcome, everybody. We will start in 1 minute. Thank you so much.
God, I didn't have my video on.
Lisa, it's nice to see a face to the name of all the emails I've received from you. So I'm glad you're here.
I am here. Yes. It's always good to get to see match a face with a name.
I agree.
All right, welcome everybody to the Clean Water meeting today on this. It's rainy here, at least, and it's 2:02/2/11, February 11th, and I just want to make sure we got everybody. We have a Lakeport. We have our Clear Lake folks. I have Mark Roberts, Maria. Okay. Just want to make sure that we. There we go. There's Eddie. I know I'm representing Lake County today. Both Scott De Leon and Marina could not make it, so the water resources or the Watershed Protection District rep will not be here, so minus that person. But I believe we have everybody else. Well, Joyce. Hey, Mark, do you know if Joyce is going to be here or Adeline Brown? Adeline, otherwise we,
Addie should be.
okay.
She's covering up the front for real quick, but she's gonna join in right after that.
Okay, so then it looks like we might just be missing a council representative from Clear Lake. So either Joyce or Russ. Looks like we don't have either one of them. So
And I'm not sure if they'll be attending. I haven't
Okay,
heard
getting
from them yet.
okay, so that we still have a quorum, so that should be fine. So, and we've cherished. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started, and then I'll let in Addie. We do have some things that take a little bit of time, so I want to make sure that we give everybody. Oh, yep, I think I just saw. Nope, that's Andrew. So let's, Maria, you are here?
I'm here.
Yay, thank you. Good to see you. I'm excited. Okay, looks like Addie's here too. Okay, so we can go ahead if you want to, you have the agenda, correct? I sent it out to you?
Yep.
Okay, so we can go ahead and we can get started at 2:05. Cherish, you are here and we have the meeting recorded just so everybody knows, but Cherish will be taking minutes.
Great. Super. Thanks everybody for joining us today. I know in our virtual environments, we've got multiple meetings and multiple scheduling conflicts. So I just really appreciate everybody taking the time to be here. Angela, are you going to call attendance or is Cherish just taking the list of participants?
Here's the agenda. Oh, attendance. Yes, we just want to do attendance for our council. And so let's just go through our Lakeport, Clear Lake, and county representatives that are here today. So do you want to call from your list, Maria? Go through that.
I have a list. I can call from the email list.
Or from the chat. Or I mean, I can do it.
Okay, how about you do it? Thank you.
Okay. So Bonnie, you here from Lakeport?
I am.
All right. And then Mark, we have you from Clear Lake, but I don't think you're officially a representative for this, but let me know if that changes so we can make those additions, okay?
Well, we also have Jenny in place of Kevin for Lakeport.
Okay. I think I have
So
that.
don't forget her.
So Mark Roberts is here from Clear Lake Planning. Maria?
I'm here.
Okay. I'm kind of also doing introductions with this a little bit. Okay. Takara, I see you are here from county as well.
I am here.
Welcome. Addie from Clear Lake, I see you.
I'm here.
Okay, Addie Lynn Brown from Clear Lake Public Works. Andrew Britton from Lakeport.
Hello.
I can hear you today. That's exciting. Okay.
Yeah.
We have Bruno Sabatier from District who? Or District Run, I can't remember. I'm sorry. I
He's
saw
two.
Bruno's.
Two.
Okay, two. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Bonnie Sharp. Okay. Cherish is here. Cherish Holcomb. Should we
Yeah.
take a minute?
Yep, I'm here. Sorry, I was eating, and you guys don't need to watch me eat, so I'm gonna turn off my video.
Your Supervisor Eddie Crandall's here. You are
Here. Yep.
Thank you. And everything keeps moving around. Jenny Byers, you are here from Lakeport, correct?
I am. I'm also eating an apple, so it's snack time apparently.
And Lisa Sabin from EOA Consulting, you are here? I see you. Oh, you're not on the council, but you're here. Yes.
I'm here. Yes.
Did I forget anybody? It looks like I have everybody. And then I am Angela DePalma from Water Resources. I am the Stormwater Program, Stormwater Coordinator Representative from Water Resources. I think, did we miss anybody? Okay, I think you're good for the next one, Maria.
Great. So we've done attendance, intro, and welcome. Well, we did the intro. Again, just wanted to welcome everybody who's taking the time to be with us today. I can hear somebody on
Do,
hold.
do you have some music? It's on hold.
I think Takara put us on hold. It's very dramatic when you speak while that music happens.
Right? Great. I wish I had something profound to have said right then. We'll go ahead and move on to approval of the minutes from December 10th. Are there any questions, concerns, requests about the minutes?
And if you need to find those minutes, they are posted. We try to get them up within a few weeks after the meetings online at our Water Resources Clean Water Program Management Council page.
Micro business or at Lake Shore.
Let's start with a little housekeeping announcement. If you are not actively talking, please make sure you remain on mute.
Tentatively March 9th.
Like Mark Roberts, not like we're calling
I
anybody's
muted
name.
I can do the mute, play God with the mute button. I don't mind doing that.
Okay, thank you.
The one thing
So-
you can control.
Yes. If there are no questions, concerns, or anything about the minutes, I'll entertain a motion for their approval.
So moved, Eddie Crandall.
Good. And a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
I didn't hear any questions, concerns, or recommendations. We're going to take that as unanimous consent. Are there any items that are not posted on the agenda today that are within the purview of this group? That's pretty cute. Hearing none, we're going to move on. COVID-19 updates related to stormwater programming. Angela.
I have nothing from the county at this point, except there have been changes from the county level. And so we do have staff that's working a lot from home. And we are, when we do sampling out in the field, which we had some storm sampling, we're taking multiple vehicles and we're masking up and we're doing all those requirements and safety measures.
Are there any reports from the city? Bonnie or Andrew?
I don't have anything from the city. I don't know if Andrew might have more than I would.
That's a no.
Okay. Moving on to Clear Lake. Any updates?
We don't have anything at this time either.
Super. Thank you. And was somebody speaking for national updates?
Yeah, just we're members of several stormwater associations and societies like CASCA and the Center for Watershed Protection. And we are getting notices from them that across the country, not unsurprising that, with their trash collection and what they're noticing more litter are these PPE things like gloves, masks. So those are showing up more in storm drains and when they're doing their maintenance and operation and cleaning things. So that's something that is occurring across the country, and then also the other thing that they're saying, which isn't a stormwater related thing because we're not special districts and we're not with wastewater, but they're seeing a lot more inputs of the flushable wipes that aren't really flushable. And so if they're seeing that more in people's, septics and in their, the sewage system, that's probably happening as well in outdoor settings. So people are using more materials to stay safe, which is good. They're saying safe, but then we're seeing the downstream end of that, which is more of these things, these materials, these PPE in public spaces and in the storm drain system as well as wastewater. So I just wanted to point that out to you guys. I don't know what these organizations are doing, if they're doing some method of trying to track that. Normal mechanisms for tracking things like outside will be like coastal cleanup day or cleaning the creeks, right? These are usually events that organizations do with a lot of people. We all show up in one day and we all go out and pick up trash and then we all have a fun time and we help. But those have been reduced because we don't want to get a whole bunch of people together and pick up trash that could have COVID on it. So it's this kind of juxtaposition that these societies are trying to figure out is they are seeing more of these PPE and COVID related litter and waste products, but at the same time, we've also been changing the way that we've been doing these sort of group events and picking up and tracking these materials and other trash and things out in the environment. So just want to bring that to your guys' attention as something that's coming across, and we'll update that as things from these societies move on.
Do I need to raise my hand
Oh,
to say something? I guess I don't know how to do that, actually.
you can comment. We're a nice bunch here.
Yeah, I know. So, hi, it's Betsy. And the reason I'm jumping in here right now is because I just want to mention that I'm doing what I can in the context of the Risk Reduction Authority to get that group of people to recognize that the things that are involving our stormwater program, our water resources, risk management activities are part of the responsibility of our Risk Reduction Authority. When we're trying really hard on that side to get our community wildfire protection plan going and implement those programs. But to us, a big element of the problem in the environment is a lot of that illicit discharge, the illegal dumping, the trash, the impediments in the storm drain systems and all those kinds of things. When you talk about people being reluctant to go out and pick up stuff that might have the exposure, there's a good example where the practices of the organizations, we need to actually also talk about how we're dealing with COVID. So, you know, Angela's been there. She's talked to the Risk Reduction Authority about flood risks, for example. We're concentrating on wildfire risks right now, but every bit of this has to do with how we treat the trash. I really think it's a common denominator. So I just want to mention that.
That's a good point. Thank you, Betsy.
Thank
I
you.
wanted to say something.
Yeah.
So this is Bruno. Just to follow up with what Betsy is saying and then something else, we just met with the Waste Management Committee. The Waste Management Committee is actually by state, I want to say, is the primary point for illegal dumping. And so we are taking that on. We've created a subcommittee with both cities and the county coming together to figure out what do we need to change within our policies, our ordinances to be able to combat illegal dumping in a better way or at all, because I don't know that we're doing too much to solve it other than cleaning it up from time to time. But we're looking at things like Butte County has a really strong illegal dumping ordinance that we're kind of using that as a guideline and trying to move forward and figure out what's going to be best. So that's being worked on. That will have an impact as well with stormwater, absolutely. My question was for you, Angela. I know that there was some funding issues with testing. You were talking about testing of the lake and water. Is that been resolved? I believe you were provided CAN grants to be able to continue to do those functions. I just want to make sure that you've gotten those funds to be able to make sure to continue to do the testing, because the testing is really important.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Bruno. On your first point, I just want to make sure too that we do have a trash plan for Lake County. It's part of the requirement for a stormwater permit. We had to put it together really quickly, but it did satisfy the water board. And we do have reporting on that, I believe, coming up in the next year or so. But I want to make sure, and maybe I should send that out to you guys so you have it, because part of that trash plan does have points in it for, you know, how do we deal with illegal dumping? Do we have more free dump days? Adopt a road, like what are some things we can do to enhance people to adopt roads and do cleanups, things like that. And that all kind of aligns with those efforts. So I'll make sure, and Cherish, can you give me an action item to make sure that I send out that trash plan or the links for it to everybody, so you guys are aware of that. And then the second thing was the water quality monitoring, which we did. The state had that program going since the late 1960s and they stopped last year. On top of everything, they're like, we're just not going to do this anymore. We have a stopgap. So between the combination of funds from some of the cannabis grant that we got funded, and then I'll mention that the effort that some of the efforts that funds is going for too with this program. So we have a stopgap for this year for that monitoring with some of those cannabis funds, as well as some funds we got for a grant, a US EPA grant that we got as co-applicants with Habimatal Upper Lake Tribe. So we're working on that. Are we able to do it to the capacity that the state was? The amount of samples? No, because they have their own labs. Of course, they don't have overhead costs with private labs like we do. But we were able to address it, make sure that we're monitoring the most important things for the work we're doing. And then as we go along, we can add things in, you know, as we figure out the true cost and the price. And we have a great boat and a great team that we're using to do all the sampling. So thanks for that question. Is there any other points on these points? Okay, thanks, Bruno.
Actually, Angela, on your water quality monitoring, you know, there is a new program that Sarah Ryan has posted on Facebook, some new water quality project that she's working on. And she's asked if we could do a regular program on KPFZ about that. If you'd like to join us and we could promote the trash plan too. I mean, that's the kind of thing I'd be happy to do.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's make sure in our work group meetings, we put that in for part of that education outreach.
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sure, I'll schedule it with you guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, Bruno, can you take your hand down? You got your hand raised. It's really hard to take you seriously with that big yellow handprint.
Mine's blue.
Oh.
Hey.
Oh, very good. Thank you. All right, so we'll move on to our next item then, which is old business. An EOA update and review a BMP calculator demo and summary from EOA.
Yeah, so I'll do a little intro for this, and then we will have Lisa from EOA talk about this. And the first thing, come on, is that this, at least the portion from the county, we were able to pay for this with EOA thanks to our cannabis tax fund. So we got that grant last year, and a big portion of that was going to help us get the specialized technical help to help us do this BMP calculator. And the items that EOA will be reviewing will be items 2 and 3 that you were sent in your attachments. One's in Excel, the actual calculator draft, and the other one's the guidance document. And then I'm gonna just give you some background first to make sure we're all on the same page for why we need this, why it's important. And then as Lisa goes through and describes it, you'll be very familiar with the terms and the description. So we're gonna have a little story here. And just so you're aware that the TMDL is what this is to satisfy, and that's total maximum daily load. And it's because Clear Lake is an impaired water body. So we're on the 303D list. And there's a timeline here where, you know, as permit holders for the state, which is part of the Clean Water Act, we're permittees with the city of Clear Lake and the city of Lakeport. And we're out of compliance with our TMDL requirements. So if you're violating Clean Water Act, which we are as an impaired water body, we're given a TMDL to basically fix or to address your impaired status. We were out of compliance starting in 2017. So we had a time schedule order, that's this TSO, in 2019. And that gave us a little more time to be able to address some specific issues under that TMDL. However, 2020, you guys are aware of what happened then. So we got another extension until January 2021. And then we contracted with EOA, thanks to the cooperation of the cities, Lakeport and Clear Lake, and as well as our cannabis tax funds to be able to have their help to finish this up and address some of these issues. Now today, Lisa will mostly focus on the urban areas, or we call them MS4 areas. So if you look at this map, these are MS4 areas. And the TMDL only includes the areas that are on the lake, because the lake is what has the impaired water body status. So unfortunately, the Coyote Valley or Hidden Valley and Middletown are left out in part of Lower Lake. So these are the areas around the lake that are going to be focused on, particularly the urban areas. Know that the rest of the county areas in between all these does have its own TMDL order. But that's not gonna be the focus of what Lisa will talk about today. But if you have questions or you wanna learn about that, we can have a separate meeting to follow up on that. So a little story shortly here. We know that in Clear Lake, phosphorus means cyanobacteria bloom. So you add more phosphorus, you're gonna have more cyanobacteria blooms. Cyanobacteria, they look like algae. They're not algae, but they photosynthesize and they need that phosphorus. So any little bit of phosphorus that's added, you're gonna get that same exact growth with cyanobacteria. And in Lake County, we know that phosphorus is found in the sediments. There's no gas form of phosphorus, and it's only found from rock material, from weathering and rock material, as well as phosphorus like fertilizers and things like that. But in Lake County, we have the issue that it's whenever there's solid rock sediments, you're gonna get phosphorus. And we know that because we've done sampling. So we know that whenever there's a certain solids or chunks in water, as this graph shows along the x-axis, we have solids, we're gonna get that same amount of phosphorus. We're gonna get a correlated amount of phosphorus, as you can see along the y for this. So this is a relationship that's at 95%. When you look at R, that's a really, really strong relationship between these two things in natural systems. We also can kind of visually see that. So this was some satellite imagery done in 2012. And this is the plume of sediments that's coming in from Middle Creek into the lake. And we can kind of see these similar areas where you see sediments coming in. When you match it up with these phosphorus, these tags of the phosphorus in the water, pretty similar areas of this phosphorus, right? And we're getting more and more technologies with satellite capabilities, but these were really useful for us to kind of identify where some of these plumes are coming from and that there are these kind of relationships between sediment and phosphorus. And then we know that sediment phosphorus can move into the lake from other things, not just streams that are here, but they can move into the lake through erosion processes, mining. We don't have a lot of mining anymore, but there's some. Land use changes or alterations, and then of course, storm water directly. Also note, there's some large internal sources of phosphorus, and this is from years and years of inputs, not just while we were in here, but pre-settlement too. Our lake is 500,000 years old. She's got some baggage, right? I don't know if you know anybody that's up there in years, but we all have health issues when we get up there. Same thing with our lake. She's had a lot of inputs. Some of these sediment phosphorus can be from things like grading. This is a very large scale grading project, obviously, of a vineyard, but near a slope. So you can see how some movements of lands could mobilize some of those sediments into a water source. Here's a ditch and culvert. Not much in there, but dirt, right? So you can see how this water can pick up some of that phosphorus, that sediment phosphorus from that dirt, go in through the drain and go out straight into Clear Lake. And then here's another example. Now this was on Facebook the other day. And this is a culvert out on Bottle Rock Road, High Valley Road. So it's not coming into Clear Lake, but it's an example of erosion process and some infrastructure erosion, right? And so you can see how this would no longer serving the purpose of moving some of this stormwater from the road to the right place, but actually just moving the materials, and this pipe integrity is lost here as well. So these are all examples of things, not all, not exhaustive, of course, but some examples. And then sediment management, therefore, is an effective strategy to reduce phosphorus and cyanobacteria blooms. And we can do that through erosion management, land use management, and stormwater management. So today we are managing stormwater just by being on this meeting and learning and talking about it and figuring out things that we need to do to manage it. We also can do some planning things, like we're developing our low impact development. So when we put in new buildings or new structures or new areas, we're changing land, we're doing it in a way that's actually having a net zero or beneficial impact for stormwater. However, stormwater is managed by incorporating what's called best management practices, or BMPs, to prevent or lessen erosion, minimize impacts of land use changes, and either treat or manage the stormwater. So thinking that we're stopping, slowing, or sinking that stormwater. And I'm going to give you some examples because when Lisa's going to talk about BMPs, and they did a lot of work categorizing all our BMPs from both cities and the county, these are kinds of things that we're talking about. So here's an example. This is a sediment trap. And this is, I don't know if you recognize this, but this is that new development over in Kelseyville. And here's a perfect example of a sediment trap. And so there's stormwater can run off of this area, collect in this basin here, and it's actually traps that water and sediment before it can just flow straight into the storm drain system. And so this is that little gravel pathway. So what happens is all the sediment water will stay at the bottom, and only the water that's just water with no sediment that's at the top can flow through this. Meanwhile, more sediment can get stuck in this gravel and all these rocks before it flows out into the storm drain system, which goes straight into Kelsey Creek. Goes right by, kind of goes by the post office, by my house into Kelsey Creek, which goes into Clear Lake. Here's some other examples. So outlet protection, velocity dissipation devices. It's a mouthful. This one's number is EC10. And this is an example from Caltrans. So this is a post-fire BMP, but it's the same purpose. This is Upper Manning Creek. And so what happened is they'll put these gravels in here, or these rocks next to this culvert, and you can see it's working. So water will shoot out of here and will actually kind of get slowed down, and the sediment will get stuck here, and then the water can flow into the creek. And so all that sediment then stays here and doesn't go into the creek and then into Clear Lake, right? Of course, later someone has to come along and clean out that sediment, and that takes money and time and effort to be able to do that. Here's another example, fiber rolls. I'm sure we all, if you've driven around to the big Caltrans road widening project between Lakeport and Clear Lake, you see all those fiber rolls they have out there. And that's to prevent all that sediment from that hill from moving down, both to protect their project, right? So they can keep the integrity of their work, but also to prevent all of it from just flowing down into a creek. And that's a major best management practice. And a lot of these we have known information on, so what they're best at managing. So for example, if we look at this fiber roll, it's best at erosion control and sediment control, right? And then if we look at the outlet protection, it's erosion control right here, this EC. So a lot of these things have some knowledge about what they specifically manage. Now, these are all physical structures that are preventing some of that material, that sediment, from getting into a waterway, but there's things that we can do to prevent it from even being starting on that journey in the first place. So examples like drain markers, right? Somebody walking by, they notice this cute frog, they see that the drain goes right to the lake, it's gonna prevent them from putting their trash or putting pollutants straight into the drain, which goes to the lake, right? Betsy talked about her show, and she told me that because I go on her show, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, Betsy, something like that. And we talk about things like water quality, after fire events, or the clean water program. I've talked about this program a lot on the show. Stormwater season, what people can do to prevent stormwater from the property or just in general. And so that's outreach. That's trying to prevent some of that source pollutants of sediment phosphorus. We also have some educational material, this new brochure from last year about nutrient management. And then of course, basic operation maintenance activities like road and street maintenance. This is actually a BMP, and look, targeted constituents are sediments, trash, metals, organics, these things, proper maintenance of our vehicles, all of our, operational areas, so of our yards, just our landscaping, proper maintenance of our sprinkler systems, all these kinds of things also count as BMPs and can help us reduce the impact of our storm drain and the sediment phosphorus that can go into our lake. So that's my intro, and the main thing to kind of take away is that we showed you what some BMPs are, but they only work the way they're supposed to if they're implemented and put in place properly, appropriately, and then we maintain them, right? Just putting some rock velocity dissipation device one time and then never going out and cleaning it doesn't serve the purpose. After a year, you're going to get that sediment buildup and you're going to get sediments going into your waterways. So this is a key thing. And then we also want to make sure that we're measuring how much sediment phosphorus that we're actually reducing by all these practices, right? So it's very, very expensive for public works to go out and clean all those storm drains. We want to make sure that's actually having a positive impact, right? It's actually doing what it's supposed to in helping our water quality, right? Because it costs a lot of investment up front. So that's my little story, just to make sure we're on the same page. And then hopefully this will set us up right, and we'll go into Lisa's slides. Are you ready, Lisa?
Yes, I am ready.
Okay, let me stop share mine.
Okay.
And you can go ahead and share yours.
Okay, let me.
Do I have?
All right. Can you all see my screen?
No.
Okay. What am I doing wrong?
And I see a
How about
question
now?
from Andrew, in the chat. So we're going to go ahead and hold that, Andrew, until we're done with Lisa's presentation, and then we're going to take questions. But your question is a very good one. Thanks.
Yeah, and no, this is draft. So this isn't the final one. So part of presenting this to you guys is so you can answer these questions and we can make sure we're addressing all of them and accounting for everything that we need to before we put it all together in a final package and it goes to the water board. And then we design management off of this. So this is the perfect time to get all those questions and inquiry out in there. So thank you. Okay, Lisa.
Okay, so you can see my screen now, everyone, I assume. Okay. All right, so the calculator tool that we developed, there's two parts to it. There's the actual calculator, which is in Excel, and then there's this guidance document that I've put up here, which is a PDF. And the guidance document is really developed to give you a lot of the background and the assumptions that are in the calculator and how it was developed, because it's not so straightforward how you're going to account for your sediment phosphorus reductions based on these different BMPs. There are a lot of choices that have to be made and a lot of inputs that have to be used. So I just want to make sure that you understand that it's probably a good idea, if you really want to understand what those calculations are telling you, that you go through the guidance document and see what we have to say. There's a whole set of information on the TMDL, how the accounting tool is developed, kind of the basis. So what is the basis for how we calculated these load reductions? And I'm going to walk through a little bit of this, but there's a lot of detail here that I think is really helpful. All right, so before we get to that, I'm just skimming ahead to, I want to just put this overview map up here. So this is your Clear Lake watershed. And what this map is showing you, we've mapped all of the BMPs that you have given us in your inventories. We've mapped them here on the map, and we've categorized them into these different categories based on color. So we've got the main types of BMPs are things that either control erosion or sediment. So those are all in pink, and those are pretty prominently displayed here. We have other types of BMPs that specifically remove sediment, and those are in blue. And then the third type are BMPs that reduce runoff or treat runoff, and those are in yellow. And I'll talk a little bit more about what these different things are. And there's a table in this guidance document to identify which BMPs are classified as which. But on the overview map, we wanted to keep it a little bit simpler because there's a lot of different BMPs. So we've got these different categories. We've got a few others on here. There are some unknowns because there were things in your inventories that we're just not really sure how to estimate their effectiveness, or if they even have a sediment phosphorus load reduction type of effectiveness. There's some that we know don't, and so those are in red. And then there's this kind of group of, nebulous, there's these other items that don't really fit into one of the other categories. The main thing we have, for example, in this other is, for example, public education and outreach fits into that. You could argue that it fits into some of these other categories, but we've put it in the other category. So that's where we're going with this. And then I want to take you to, let me just pull up this other table. So this is a table that is actually in, sorry, I'm trying to remove the little video thing. I don't know how to do that. Okay, well, I can't see all of my screen here, but hopefully enough of it. I'll maybe make this a little smaller.
You should be able to grab it and just move it away too.
Oh,
Like from the top bar, you should be able to just move it. And push it kind of to the
excellent.
side.
Okay, perfect.
That worked?
Thank
Okay,
you.
great. Good.
Great. Okay. So I want to start with this table because this is kind of the bottom line of where the calculator is telling you that you're at right now. And it also has a lot of the assumptions of how we got to this bottom line in here. So what I have here is here's your TMDL, your total maximum daily load. This is the maximum amount, 2,000 kilograms per year of phosphorus that the MS4s can discharge to Clear Lake and have Clear Lake still meet its water quality objectives. So this is your goal. You're trying to get to no more than 2,000 discharged to the lake. The information in the TMDL says that your MS4 areas are discharging about this much, about just under 3,500 kilograms. So the load reduction you need to make is shown here. I should note, I have divided this among the 3 different permittees. That's based on a metric that I was directed to use by you all, which is based on your population and the area. That could be changed. That's really your call. These numbers down here are what the water board cares about. These are really for you to decide how you want to divide it up. This is how we've done it for now. But again, this is the bottom line, this 1,400, this is how much you need to reduce. So then I have this next line, and this is explained in the guidance in a decent amount of detail. But what I want to explain here is what I've done is I've taken the TMDL load that was in the all the documentation, the modeling that was done to develop the TMDL. And instead of just focusing on that, we have this other number. So I believe it was the county did a study back in 2007 that looked at various water quality and flow data, and they came up with an estimate of the watershed load. And it was substantially less than what the TMDL had estimated over here. They estimated, sorry, this is what the TMDL estimated your load was here. This study based on that, your load is actually quite a bit less. And so the way this is set up is under the assumption that here's where you are at in the years that the modeling done for the TMDL and the water quality data that went into the TMDL, which was actually in mostly the 90s through about 2000. This is where you are at, and between that time period and the monitoring that was done in the 2007-8 time period, there was a reduction. So I'm just giving you that reduction. That's this right here. This is how much less you are. So everything that's in the calculator is basically starting from this baseline load and not this baseline load. So you're starting here. The calculator is set up though, if you don't want to do that, if you want to see how it looks if you start here, it's literally one number we have to change and everything in the calculator will calculate for this baseline. So it's pretty easy to change, but this is what I'm suggesting that you, at least as your first pass with the water board, you try this because you've already gotten a pretty decent load reduction. So here's where you're starting in the calculator. These are the loads that I've estimated based on the BMPs you've told me about that you've reduced. So you've gotten about, since 2007, about an additional just under 44 kilograms of load reduction. This gives you the amount you've achieved to date, which is this 574 plus 43. You're about 43% of the way to your TMDL. Here's where you need to be, 827. So you still have a ways to go. You're getting close to halfway, but you still have a considerable way to go. So this is just to give you the picture of where you're starting. I guess I'll pause here. Does anyone have any specific questions before I move into the actual BMPs and the calculations and so forth?
It's a comment / question. I
This is
appreciate.
Betsy Kahn. I have a question.
I'll let Betsy go first.
Okay, sure.
Oh, no. That's all right, Bruno. Go ahead.
Okay. I know that, actually, I don't know that. I believe that dirt roads and the runoff of dirt roads adds to the lake's TMDL. And I know that for this year and next year, I was just told very recently they're going to continue this process. Sorry, they started last year. They're doing more this year and again the following year, which is great. They're slowly chip sealing their dirt roads, which will help at least hold some of the dirt and not just allow it to run off. Now, I don't know if there's a reverse effect of having now asphalt or more road-like material out there. But I'm happy to see that there is a measurable to look at to see if there's going to be impact from those changes that will be occurring. It's mainly happening over in the avenues, which is almost entirely dirt roads. It's got to be close to about 10, 15 miles worth, if not more, of dirt roads. First time they've ever changed a dirt road to something else in the past, who knows, if not ever. And so do you think that that will have an impact on the TMDL?
I think that definitely can have an impact. And I will just note that particular, I would call that a BMP to reduce sediment, and it is not in this calculator. So that's something you should add. And I just want to say that the inventory that's included in the calculator right now, it's based on what you've told me about. So if you have other items like what you're talking about there, definitely we want to include those. I think that's definitely something that should be on the list to be included in your inventory and to estimate a load reduction for.
And the folks representing the city of Clear Lake would definitely know the greater details of those things.
So part of this process is we say where we are now, and then the next step is we haven't met our allocation. So then the next part of our time schedule order requirement is to make a management plan. And so in that management plan, we could say, hey, we already have some of these road improvements going through. 15 miles of roads are being chip sealed. This is the reduction we're going to see. Then that leads our reduction to be this. Here's how we're going to tackle that remainder. And so that gives us the power and the ability to be able to say, this is how we're going to manage this, instead of giving it to the state, or, you know, so it's okay that if we don't want to include it in the calculator report now for that, because we can say that these are the things that are going in for a management plan. And so then we're already kind of like tackling the problem ahead of time by current things that are going on. Does that make sense? I don't know if I explained that.
I think that's a good strategy, Angela, because then you have, because the next question, of course, the water board is going to say is, what are you going to do about not meeting your TMDL? And so that's part of your answer.
Right. So if you already have these things lined up, like, oh, we're going to, even that park that's going in at Austin Beach and stuff, if there's some, stormwater infrastructure going in there, there's some BMPs, that'll all count too. So if you already come back and you say, hey, here's all the things we have in the works to address this, then it looks good. And then at least we're out of the weeds or out of the woods for the political, the water board mess. So.
Yeah, and that also brings me to another point that I want to make, and I'm just going to pop over to the inventory. Everything in here that is in yellow in the calculator, you can add to it, and it will add to your load reductions that it's calculating. So you have the opportunity to keep adding to this calculator. This doesn't have to be a static tool. It could also even potentially be used for planning, where you can say, okay, what if we did do, X BMPs across this many acres, and then you could see what those load reductions would be. So, so think of it also as a potential planning tool for you as well.
Yes, and that was another. that was the intent of doing this, as opposed to just writing a letter to the water board and saying, hey, this is what we've done, and estimating it, right? We actually wanted to spend a little more time and get this tool. So then we make sure that we're doing the things that have the most impact and we're accounting for them correctly. So that was the intent. So that's perfect. Did you have something to follow up with? I just want to make sure that Betsy too has a chance.
And that's what I was going to follow up with.
Okay.
I think there was another question.
Betsy?
Yeah, thank you. So I have two questions now. One is, when you go back to the basic, the previous table where you're showing the loads, I'm wondering what exactly are you measuring to show the, where is this 43.50? So the total BMP load reduction achieved since 2007. Are you using the inventory to measure what you think is the load reduction?
Yeah, so I actually would like to
What are you measuring to show that load reduction?
Yeah, if you let me, I'll walk you through that. It's not super simple, but I think I can explain it briefly here, and you can read more in the guidance. So hopefully you'll be able to understand where is this number coming from. I think that's probably the better thing to do. And I want to take you to this spreadsheet, which is, again, this is all in the calculator. There's a lot of numbers here, but the guidance does explain what these numbers are and how they're calculated. And once again, everything in yellow are numbers that you can change, so that if you want to do some forecasting, or if you want to change up some of your inputs, you can do that and everything will be recalculated. But getting to your question, so there is actually, let me do it this way. Let me go to the guidance document and show you kind of the basic calculation. And then I'll tell you about what are the inputs in that calculation and where they came from. Sorry, I must have scrolled right. Here we go. Okay, so the basic calculation in the calculator is we have to calculate the annual load of the phosphorus reduced. We have these three inputs. One is the area that's addressed by a given BMP. The other is what I'm calling the phosphorus yield. You could think of it also as a phosphorus rate. How much phosphorus, the total amount of phosphorus per acre per year that is coming off of, off the land. So, and this is a key number, and this is the number that came from, I developed, basically we took the total baseline load and just evenly applied it across your MS4 areas to come up with this mass of phosphorus per acre. And then we have an effectiveness, a Bmp effectiveness factor that we apply to that. So for example, a number of the sediment and erosion controls may have an effectiveness of about 70%. They reduce this phosphorus yield by about 70%. So you put all these numbers into the equation and you come up with an annual load of phosphorus that's reduced. That's the basic idea. There's a lot more details in the guidance that can help walk you through where all of those different numbers come from. I will tell you the BMP removal effectiveness numbers, there's a whole section that describes where those numbers came from and the bottom line. And this is both in the guidance as well as in the tool itself. There's a table in the tool, but this is a summary of here's all the BMP types that are included in the calculator. Here's the assumed effectiveness of each BMP type. I added this confidence rating because you should be very aware that some of these are pretty well accepted numbers, and some of them, there's very little data available. For example, public education and outreach. There really are very few to no studies on what the impact on phosphorus load reductions are of public education and outreach. So it's not easy to come up with that number. There's some sources and, but the confidence in this number is relatively low compared with all these here that are relatively high. All of these numbers came out of pretty rigorous scientific studies that were done specifically measuring how much phosphorus was going in and how much was coming out of these different BMPs. And there are a lot of them. I think every single one of these of the studies for these different BMPs has a minimum of 200 sample data for influent and effluent. So these we have high confidence in, some we have low confidence in. There's others that I put as moderate because the source of these are, most of these are based also on studies, but a more limited number of studies that are perhaps more site specific. And so the applicability to Clear Lake may be unsure. And this is where any of these lows and moderates, you may need to think about doing some studies in your area or looking into, if that's a possibility. I don't want to get too far off track though, I'm afraid. There's a lot of assumptions that go into all of this. And I think my goal is to just make sure that you have all that documented, that you have all those assumptions documented, so you know what the calculator is telling you. Does that answer your question well enough for now?
Well, it's very helpful. But this is all based upon a kind of a side interpretation of where the phosphorus is coming from. I mean, we're looking at external loading now entirely, right? The
Yes.
External new inputs to the lake.
Oh, yes.
And we're not even measuring sediment. Say that we're measuring this abstract value calculated from, standards of what a detention basin will do,
Yes.
but detention basins can be very different from each other and
Absolutely.
very different effects. So these are just really a sketch of.
Yes.
Okay.
And
I will say that this is what the water board
Thank you.
wanted.
Yeah,
They
this is
literally told us, do not do monitoring. They wanted us to do this. So we are obviously doing monitoring now. We don't have any monitoring data. Our county, the cities, we never did monitoring at a detention basin, at an outflow forever. We've never done that. We're starting that plan and that process now, as you know. So we don't have any of that data to base any of that on, and it's not what the water board wanted to satisfy the TMDL. They said, do what previous literature and other cases have said in order to give us an estimate of what your load is. So they specifically asked us, do not do monitoring. They would not accept it. So just to put some context, and we're trying to actually do, make plans for what can benefit the resource and how we can manage. But then we're also trying to satisfy the requirements from our, our permit and the Clean Water Act listing too, just FYI.
Okay, so I'm going to go to the BMP inventory. Angela, maybe just a quick time check? I'm just wondering how quickly I should try to go through a few examples, or
maybe 10 minutes and then we can get to the other stuff. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
And we can always do a follow-up meeting. So we actually have this demo is for the management council, but with the cities and the county, with us, we wanted to do another meeting with you to go through more specifics so we can structure our reports. So if there's anybody really interested in this and you want to dig deeper, you can definitely join us on those follow-up discussions with us, so we can, not take time away from the other things we have to do today in the management meeting, just so that that's clear.
Okay, so I'm just going to show you a couple of examples in the calculator right now. I've already pulled them up, the ones that I thought would be good to show you, just to give you a sense of what kind of inputs go into this and then what you end up with. So if you look at this first row here, this is a BMP that's in the city of Clear Lake. The total area is about 6.1 acres. we've noted here that it was implemented after 2007. And then this is the BMP type, which I have identified as good housekeeping, just as a general term. And then the more specific description is here of all the different things that were included. And then if you go over here to the white, these are the calculated fields. So this is that rate, the phosphorus rate coming off the area for Clear Lake. And the effectiveness is about 70% based on the literature data. So you end up with, for this one BMP, the phosphorus load reduction is just a little more than 1 kilogram per year. So this is then included, oh, excuse me. I apologize. The downsides of working from home is people can show up at your house unexpected. Okay, so where was I? All right, so that's the Clear Lake example. And then there's a couple other here examples also from Clear Lake. I wanted to look at, here's a Lake County MS4 example. This one is about grading. And so I put in a BMP type that is enforcement of the grading ordinance. And this gets, again, apply about a 70% removal effectiveness. So you get about 5 kilograms per year for applying that ordinance to the area that was included for that property. And then I wanted to also show you one from Lakeport. This property is just about 4.5 acres. The BMPs are a vegetated swale and a detention basin. You're getting about a 66% reduction effectiveness for those. So you get about half of a kilogram of phosphorus load reduction. And then the last thing I wanted to show you is I just added these two as examples. These are hypotheticals. So what you're currently, so for example, in Lake County MS4, your storm drain inlet cleaning program right now, we're estimating it's roughly annual that you clean everything out. If you were to increase that to biannually, this will give you an estimate of what you could get. And all the information is here. But increasing it to biannual would give you about 6.5 kilograms of phosphorus load reduction. So this is just an example of one thing that you could consider. I did another hypothetical for increasing street sweeping in the city of Clear Lake. Right now you're doing approximately monthly sweeping, but if you increased it to weekly, you could get about 12, almost 13 kilogram of additional load reduction. So these are just to give you an example of how the tool also can be used so that you can, look at the different things that you might want to consider.
I have a question on that real quick. When was this data aggregated?
All the data for that's in the inventory.
Well, specifically talking about the street sweeping, because I know there's been a quite steady increase as well. Again, maybe that's something to add in the future. These are the BMPs that are being, those are the actions that we're taking versus this is where we were. Just wanted to make sure and put that out there. Again, the city of Clear Lake would know more specifics than I would.
Yeah, so I communicated with the city of Clear Lake, and what's in here right now is based on what they've told me. And you may want to, I would encourage people to go and look through your inventories and make sure you don't want to update those, because some of these things like street sweeping, if you have increased it since the TMDL, you can get credit. If you're doing the same thing you've been doing all along, you can't get additional credit. It's really about BMPs that are enhancements above what you were doing from the, at that baseline period. So from everything that I was told, there aren't these enhancements since that baseline period, but if that's not correct, this can be revised and you'll have that opportunity.
It's not just the number of times that it's being used, it's also the mileage of what's being swept, correct?
So these rates are based on when you say something is monthly, I have the curb miles that are, we basically calculate the curb miles swept annually based on whatever you have. And then it also depends on the type of sweeper that you use. The information that I have is that you guys are using pretty good sweepers in Clear Lake, so that's great. And the places that are already doing weekly street sweeping, it's hard to increase much over that, but the monthly one is one where you have that opportunity for increasing.
Okay, thank you.
So there was a question in the chat from Andrew, and that might have addressed that. So Andrew asked if Lakeport got credit for basically good housekeeping, so their MPDS permit compliance, construction controls, enforcement of grading ordinances, and if Lakeport, you already had those in place before 2007, and you're doing the same things before 2007, which the MPDS permit that I believe we had was 2003 is when it started. So if you were already doing some of those things and they didn't change after 2007, then that might not be reflected in the calculator. Is that correct, Lisa?
Well, I can tell you for Lakeport, I don't have any kind of, all of your BMPs were more structural type of BMPs. I don't have O&M.
So maybe you guys need to reach out to Lisa and get those put in there if you guys are doing activities that's started after 2007 for those good housekeeping.
Okay. Can you clarify? That's basically on the planning and community development side, the enforcement of the grading ordinance and things like that.
Yeah. So anything related to grading, you would want to include in here, because basically the assumption we're using here is the grading ordinance came into effect in 2007. So anything that falls under that, you can count. I would,
Lisa, the city of Lakeport doesn't have a specific grading ordinance. We have a chapter in our municipal code that deals with erosion control.
Okay.
And I'm not certain of the date of that. And I'm also not certain what our community development department has provided to you regarding our enforcement activities, enforcement of the building code, the grading provisions in the building code. That's been going on for decades.
Yeah, so like I said, there is kind of a tricky issue of making sure that you're only getting load reductions for kind of new or enhanced actions. So if you're just doing the same thing you've been doing for decades, it's not going to count against your TMDL, because the idea is that that was already counted in that baseline load that was estimated. So they've already accounted for the fact that you were doing something at the time the baseline was determined. So you do have to be careful, and that's why I've kind of made this clear, before 2007 or after 2007. Because if it was happening before 2007, and again, all of the information that's in the calculator, I would encourage all, the cities in the county to look through it, because if any of this information is not correct or should be updated, then those numbers could change. But this is based on the information that I have to date. So, keep that in mind, look through it, see if you agree. If any of it you think is not correct, that's, something that is quite easily changed. Once again, one of the basics of this calculator, anything that's in these yellow, you can change any of those. Don't change anything that's not yellow. So please don't change anything in here. Okay. Don't change, in this file, don't play around with any of these numbers, but you can change any of the yellow numbers.
So it looks like Lakeport is also missing the component where Public Works is cleaning the drain inlets, and I didn't see that information in there. And then also our street sweeping schedule.
Okay, so let's, I want to make sure that we stay on time for this meeting. It seems like Lakeport, you guys need to go through your inventory and double check everything, and then email Lisa or call Lisa and get it. working on this BMP inventory. We've had requirements to do this for like a year. So we've had lots of opportunities to make sure we had everything, but of course stuff is going to get slipped through the cracks, or things are going to get compiled or summarized or left off, maybe in a different Excel. It happens all the time, right? So let's just make sure that you guys go through, fine tooth comb, talk amongst yourselves, make sure you're accounting for everything. Because I think Lakeport, your guys' load was very, like what you had to achieve was very small, or not that much compared to Clear Lake and County. So if you guys can get that halved, you guys are, you know, maybe your new park, put in some BMPs and stuff and a retention basin, and you might be good to go. So, but I want to make sure we stay on track for the meeting for everybody, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so Jenny, Bonnie, and Andrew, you guys can go through that. I sent it out, and you can actually, the BMP inventory tab, make sure you go through there and look at all your Lakeport ones and make sure everything's accounted for. And then reach out to
Thank
Lisa.
you.
Yeah. So do you have a couple minutes, Lisa? Is there anything else you want to touch on, or is there any other questions? But we do have to move on.
That was everything I planned to cover, but if anyone has any questions more about the general, not about specific inventories, but the general operation of the calculator, feel free to ask.
See Bruno.
Sorry if I missed the answer to this or didn't read it in the material. Is this an annually updated report?
That part's up to you, but this calculates everything based on an annual basis. The TMDL is an annual load.
Right. Thank you.
And we should be reporting probably our TMDL status every year. Other jurisdictions do that. Marin has one for bacteria and some nutrient, and they submit a TMDL report every year talking about all the activities they've done and how they've managed it and reduced their action. Are we ever going to get off the impaired water body list? Probably not, because Clear Lake is naturally eutrophic, naturally enriched. But what we can do is have maintenance mode for reporting to the state and be able to just continue doing, you know, improve our management every year and report upon that. And then hopefully everybody will be happy and will improve our resource. Sound good? Okay. Thank you, Lisa. If there's any other questions. All right, thank you. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to sign off now.
Okay, thanks. Okay, let's move along. And okay. The second, Maria, did you want to narrate or you want me to just go along?
I was reading while I was on mute, sorry. So the next one is review of EOA PEAIP timeline. Back to you, Angela.
Okay, so this is another requirement for our permit, which guess what? We're like 5 years behind on. And we got, we enlisted the help of EOA to do this portion as well. And this is really key because this will actually tell us, besides TMDL stuff, but what else in our program is working and what's not working, and specifically, where do we need to improve that? So we have a, this is our schedule for that, and just wanted to keep you all updated. Folks from Clear Lake and Lakeport have been talking with EOA and reporting on some of our program stuff. So things like, you know, in parks, do we have signs that say, you know, scoop the poop? Or, you know, do we have trash cans at bus stops? Things like that, things that how overall stormwater impacts, are they being addressed as part of the program? Some of the standards within stormwater programs. So basically we're at the draft report February 19th. So we should have something around then coming from EOA based on inputs from Clear Lake and Lakeport and County. And then we have a about a month, a little less, to go through that, like we're doing now with the TMDL calculator, but kind of going through and doing in review or provide any comments. And then they'll write the final report for us, which we'll have by March 12th. The reason some of this was delayed than the original is because part of that TMDL BMP calculator can play a large part in this program effectiveness. So every program effectiveness plan includes a pollutant or constituent of interest. And of course, for ours, it's going to be the sediment phosphorus, just to make sure that overall our whole program is making sure that we're doing the best we can for improving that aspect. Are there any questions? Okay. The next thing was the LID document updates. We touched on that last time. We're continuing to kind of grind through that. We had a LID party meeting. It was on January 14th, and we had planning there from county, water resources, and then we had representatives from Lakeport and Clear Lake, planning, community development. And there is some, we're trying to figure out, you know, where is the line for, where does cannabis fit in? Because when the original requirement for LID went into place for municipalities, cannabis was not on the, it wasn't being considered because it wasn't legal and there wasn't any plan. So we're trying to figure out, you know, what we do for cannabis, what does that fit in with what we do for other planning projects and things like that. I would say we're about 50% done. Bonnie, Sharp, do you have any, does that seem about right?
Yeah, we're actually working, once we finished with a few of the housekeeping parts of the actual manual, we're actually, the next party is going to be dealing with the attached documents that are going to be used for both the county and the city, so it stays consistent. Once we have the attachments ready to go so that we can actually supply them when we hand out our building applications, etc., and planning projects, then we'll have it go before the, she'll take it to county council, we'll take it to the city attorneys, make sure all the legal aspects of it are correct, and then it'll go before the city councils and the board of supervisors so that we're all basically using the same document. There's just going to be slight modifications based on jurisdictional issues. And then once we have that ready to go, we're also sending the amended document over to the city of Clear Lake because they already adopted the draft that we created back in 2015. And so that way they can amend their own document and we'll all be consistent.
So two things, I think we were gonna have one of the appendices be cannabis related. That way we can update it and without having to update the whole LID, right? Because as cannabis moves and evolves and things change, it would make sense to have it be a separate kind of document that we can easily change and adjust, and then just have that be referred to in the main LID. So I think that's kind of what we were thinking. The other question I have for the council is if, before we send this out to legal and all that, if we want to review some of those major changes and major components of it in here with the management council, with you guys at that point first, does that seem like a useful benefit or no real? I see Bruno kind of nodding. Yes. Okay. Okay, so that's something that we can do too, is we can have any, because if you guys review it and you say, yes, we support it, we like it, then going to the boards and the councils, it has more credence. And then I don't have a meeting on the calendar yet for the next one, but I was thinking March, like the first week in March for that.
I just want to say I was nodding, but I'm not officially a voting member unless EJ is not here. So it's really not up to me.
Oh.
Yeah, and I put a thumbs up because I
Okay.
didn't want to interrupt anybody. So sorry.
Sounds good. Okay. I think that's it for that. Next item, Maria, if you wanted to go to.
We're on to new business.
Oh, I didn't even put that in there. We're missing a slide. Okay. So new business, we have the story map. Daniela, did you want to review that? It's kind of work group related, but also it pertains to the whole program. So I can stop share, Daniela, if you wanted to do that. I apologize.
Yeah, I can go over it, and I'll try to go over it quickly because there's a lot of information on it. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I did this for kind of like the work group, the public outreach work group, but also I incorporated a lot of the other elements of stormwater management. So it's intended for outreach, This will be shareable and we'll be posting it on the water resources page as a link to open up. And then also we'll be posting it on the respective Facebook pages for the Clean Water Program and then our own Water Resources Department program. And it just kind of gives an overview of what stormwater management is and puts things into layman's terms, because I know a lot of people don't make those connections what stormwater is all about. So this is the first section. And so this left side is kind of text heavy and image heavy. And then this right side is more media input. So maps, videos, and graphs and images. So this first section is the basics, kind of showing what stormwater impacts has on the overall watershed. And then it has clickable links. So if I clicked on this one, it would kind of zoom out and show the entirety of the basin and all of the different watersheds that are in our county boundary, but they extend outside of our county boundary. So that's just the first section. Second section, it has a cool video from the water boards explaining stormwater pollution. And then on this side, it explains it more and kind of gives us ideas of what we can do as a community to improve stormwater pollution and what is going into our lake and our creeks around us. And then this third section kind of describes what a watershed is, because some people don't know where the creeks drain into or drain out of. And it explains what is going on in this map. Then also we have another legend on this side. And then the system, I wanted to include some precipitation data on here. And we have a couple of different rain gauges and we could see the totals in here. You can click in dates and it'll show you. So if we change this to today's date, and then on this side, it gives the average precipitation, describes what runoff is, and then groundwater infiltration as well. And then on this side, it'll calculate everything. And then include sources to different websites. And then this next section is this is where I want to take the IDDE management plan that I'm developing within the department and going to present to the work group as well so we can get some stuff going. So this map I like this map because it's interesting because it shows all of these drainages, the culverts and outfalls, and where everything is flowing. And then the other part to this map are the water districts, where your water is coming from. So that if you click on them, it'll give you all the information about these different elements. And then one of our Civic Spark Fellows has been working on outreach flyers, and I wanted to include some of those as well, because I think he's done an awesome job on kind of making those connections in a way that can be easily read by any member of the public. And then tips and resources, where to file complaints for water discharges, illegal water discharges, and illegal dumping. Both the county and cities I've included the homepage links and then contact information for all of those. And all of these links work as well. And then the last section kind of explains what the managers of the stormwater management program are, and that's the Clean Water Program. And it gives more information on each of those pages. So ours goes directly to our water resources page and then to the Clean Water page. And then City of Clear Lake, I didn't find anything specific to the Clean Water Management Program. So I just put the municipal codes for stormwater that they have provided. And then City of Lakeport, I put yours on there as well for your clean water program, that link. And then this is another outreach flyer that our Civic Spark Fellow has been working on. And then the last element is the Watershed Protection District water resources on kind of the different projects that we work on. And it's basically the front page of the Watershed Protection District found on our website, and explains everything, and then some photos on the projects that we work on. And that's all I got.
That is totally cool. Wow. Well done.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's still not a finished project. I'm still working on some of the text and some of the graphics on the maps because I want to make it the most readable to people, because I have a cartography background, so a lot of it makes sense to me, but I know it doesn't make sense to people that don't have a cartography background.
That's really neat. And it's great. I mean, you don't, because it is all different levels of data, and it actually reaches, you know, it could reach our younger people too. You could just root around in this website and just find all kinds of interesting stuff that even the little ones could understand. Well done.
Yeah, and I want to give a huge shout out to our public outreach work group, especially Betsy Kahn, for giving us so much input on what the public wants to see.
Yeah, great job.
Good job,
Do we have
Daniela.
any anyone want to talk about this any further? Comments? Concerns?
The only thing I'd add is that the purpose is that we can have a more on our website, more dynamic and like integrated information through our website, and then all of our tools can be in one spot. So let's say we are going to go do a like community outreach event whenever we can have those again, right? Or we're gonna have a booth in the park at the farmer's market. We have some of those same resources online and the information that we're giving out, and we know, you know, what are some things that we're going to talk about for stormwater and what to refer people. Same thing if we have teachers that are reaching out that want to talk about important environmental stuff for Clear Lake to their classroom, we can direct them to that and say, like, whatever you find on there that you like interesting, let us know. We could either, you know, put it together for you or send you some more slides to kind of create this more, you know, approachable, welcoming, and dynamic setting for those to get more aware and educated about stormwater and how it connects to our water quality in our lake and our streams. So the next item was, I have a monitoring plan progress and update, and then there was a digital data collection, and we're in the process of doing that. So I want to table that specific item till next meeting. When we have it, like, I'll finalize, we'll be able to show you. Basically, we're developing our monitoring site plan, and then we're also incorporating digital data collection. So the idea is you just go out, you take your samples, you input them right then and there. Somebody near that site can be able to look online, look at the map, and see what data was collected and water quality, you know, from our website, from our map at that exact time in real time. So we're working on that. I was going to show you a beta version, but we'll table that for next time. So it's complete in the interest of time.
Okay, then that moves us on to work group status update.
Let me share screen.
Since March of last year, there have been over 3,000.
I don't know what that is. So we talked about TMDL status. We're gonna have another, and then we have a pyrethroid order, and that's tied in with our monitoring plan. We're gonna have a meeting. We have a second part of phase 2 of that meeting will be February 9th. And then the TMDL, I don't have planned, or we had a meeting on February 9th, sorry. So these are the status, what we've done in the last quarter. And then the next slide will be what we plan on doing. Okay, so that's the organized. So we had a meeting on the 9th for that. Bonnie had one for PCON on the 17th, and the agenda for that was in your packet, just to give you an idea of kind of things, who was there and what they talked about. We had POP meetings. We actually had a couple more after this. This is left over from the last meeting, but we did have an online version of our nutrient management brochure. So if you go to our clean program website, on there will be the first page is the digital version of that brochure. And I think, did you touch on it, Daniela, in your thing? I think it was up there, right?
It's in a QR code. You have to scan it with your phone. It'll take it to you to it. Because it was giving me a weird format when I put it on either section of my story map.
And then we also put together these digital ads, or they're PSAs, but they're online. And this is kind of an example of what one looks like, although there's a whole bunch of different shapes, sizes and shapes. So, you know, like when you're on Facebook or Spotify or something on some digital thing and you have ads that show up on the side or pop up. So we have some that are popping up for this right here on the side. They're examples to that. So trash in the streets leads to the creeks and to Clear Lake. And then you can click on it and then it takes you to the Clean Water Program website for that. And so they're out there. And Daniela, do you want to talk about the next two?
Yeah, so IDDE and trash, I will be sending out doodle polls to get a sense of when people can meet from those work groups. I've taken over those, and so I've been working on my own stuff within the Water Resources Department and gathering information. And I'll be sharing that with the city, with both cities, to see where we're headed with these work groups.
Great, thank you. And then we did have some turnover, I believe, at Clear Lake for the Muni Good Housekeeping. But Addie, did you have any update? I think I can go to the next slide. Here's some upcoming work group stuff, but if you have any, I think you guys are gonna schedule a Good Housekeeping Muni meeting coming up, right?
Correct. So I'll be briefly summarizing everything. So we're currently, as you mentioned, you know, we had a bit of overturn and people leaving and retiring. So Addie and I are currently doing a revitalizing the program and informational handouts, community outreach. We still have, you know, like regular trash pickup and street clean sweeping in place, but we're currently doing a revitalizing it and getting it back together. So we'll have updates as we go.
Okay, that's good. The other thing I would encourage for work group participation for each municipality. So a lot of these are led by a specific person in any one of the municipalities of the co-permittees. But for the illicit discharge elimination, because we can have spills that are in Lakeport or City of Clear Lake, we really should have a representative from each of those municipalities present in the illicit discharge program. Just because there is some cross coordination. So we get a spill, let's say there's a boat that spills oil from the Redbud ramp into the lake, that connects both of us, right? That's not just City of Clear Lake jurisdiction, but that's also then Water Resources because it goes into the lake. And so we should both have, you know, within the work groups for those, there should be some strong representation from all three of us to make sure that we're all on the same page for what we're doing, because that's the one where, you know, stuff can be emergency or immediate action, and we all need to kind of be on the same page for what that might be. That's, I think a lot of these other ones, you know, you can come in and go out, you know, we encourage participation, obviously, but I think that's the one for the formation of some of those tools for illicit discharge. We need everybody to be attending everyone. That would be my suggestion. Strong encouragement.
Okay.
So this is the information if anybody's interested in any of these work groups. There's some of the login information if it exists already, and then the doodle poll, if you have the agenda, the doodle poll link is in there. And so then Daniela will send that out to you guys too, whoever wants to attend. And then we'll put advertisements also on at least our Facebook page. I think we do that.
Yeah, I'll email the link, the doodle poll out to the work group contacts.
Is there any other questions on work group stuff?
Angela, this is Betsy Kahn. I do apologize to everybody. I cannot figure out how to raise my hand on the little.
That's okay. Every version, it has it in a different spot. It's hard to find sometimes, depending what version you
Just
have.
make sure that
Right,
your
well,
hand doesn't
I can't find
raise.
right? Anyway, the question I have is, this meeting has been focusing on the TMDL, and now we're talking about the work groups and all those other things. There's a larger component to the permit that I am concerned about us having some discussion over. It may not be appropriate for this meeting, but the overarching discussion about our ordinances. And actually, that to me is a big component of the public education outreach, public involvement and participation, as we have discussed in the past, getting people involved in enforcing our ordinances. And that the utility of that has been interpreted through the permitting process from the State Water Quality Control Board as having a value, because if you have practices, BMPs, for example, and they're included in your ordinances for stormwater management or shoreline protection, and those are out of date and no longer applicable or not effective, I would think that would be important to measure in your effectiveness process. And so I'm not, it's all fine and good to me that you measure the TMDL. When are we going to measure the actual governance of this process? That's one of my questions.
So you can send me a bulleted I know you sent this to me in different formats before, but I can send it to the representative EOA that's putting together our public effectiveness assessment and ask her, and I could CC you, and we could ask, what is included, what's the overlap, right, between those two things that they're preparing, because they're handling that for us. And so if that's a shortcoming or not being addressed, then that's going to be in that assessment plan.
Well, it's also something I'm raising the subject now with the management council, because the management council is supposed to be overseeing the actual compliance with the water quality order. And a program effectiveness evaluation contract is just one segment of that oversight. And it just keeps not getting raised as a subject. The effectiveness of the actual governance within our municipalities would be really, I think, beneficial to look at. The city of Clear Lake has tools and opportunities and even responsibilities according to their general plan and other of their authority instruments that call for a lot of projects that we could get grants for and help them implement, but it doesn't come before their government body. So there's a big loop that's not even talked about, let alone closed, is what I'm suggesting, that the management council is here to do that. So just raising that flag.
Thank you. It's noted.
Okie dokie.
Is there anything else? I think we have a couple more items and then we're done. We're wrapping up.
Our next item is next steps, but there's nothing listed there. Was there anything that you wanted to speak to?
The only thing I wanted to say, which is kind of tied into what Betsy said, is that the next steps, at least I know that we're trying to look for as we're playing catch up with permit requirements, is assessing the true costs of stormwater. And so just for example, I know for us, any year we have an annual permit cost between $14,000 and $20,000. And so far, at least for us, Water Resources is paying that out of pocket. And that really takes a big chunk of us then being able to actually improve water quality. And that includes maybe being able to look closer at a stormwater ordinance and make sure that we're following it and that we're enforcing those key aspects, or making sure that we actually have ability to respond to illicit discharges, or that we're doing all that we can to communicate with lakeshore owners about, their activities along the lake or along streams, things like that. So I can't speak for the cities, but I know for us, we're trying to figure out a way to kind of share this cost. So Bruno brought up roads before. We have a lot of unpaved roads as well in our in the Lake County areas, both MS4 and non-MS4 areas. And all of those are producing, you know, sediments and phosphorus that then is coming down the line and that we're taking care of at the end as opposed to above. And so there's a cost associated with trying to do that. And so I know at Essex Water Resources, we're strangled by being able to actually do the work to improve the resource because we're just trying to, you know, pay off some of these burdens, these costs, just to hold the paperwork or, you know, to have the authority to be able to manage that and do that. So I can't speak again on the cities, but for the county, that's something that now we're trying to work through because all these things cost money and time, and we're just not able to stay afloat for that, for some of those things. So it's kind of a broader next step, but I just want to put it on the horizon for some of you guys in the council. And is there anything else from the other two permittees for next steps? Anything they're looking?
Not for
No,
my,
we're just working with Lisa and getting all the things that she's wanting so that we can have the most effective calculations that we can get, and then just basically trying to stay active and follow through on project agreements and construction, erosion controls and BMPs and stuff. So I think just trying to make sure that all the staff is aware of what stormwater issues impact the department so that it's completely embraced by, you know, more than just one or two departments.
Yeah, that's a key point, is that stormwater is, you know, it's shared by everybody. Basically every department, every activity has some impact on stormwater. And so, yeah, we're trying to figure that out as well. Addie, did you have a question? I saw your mute button come off.
no.
Okay. Okay, I think that's it then for the next steps.
Yep, just reviewing 2021 schedule. Our next meeting is Thursday, May 13th. Super.
Okay, and I'll send out a save the dates and information for that. And then some important dates. We did have our TMDL report that we talked about today was due. And we did pass that due date because of delays just by nature. The State Water Board did let us know that they are starting the notice of violation process. But usually that takes a letter that gets here in a few weeks, and then they say you have a few more weeks to submit it. And then if not, we'll start a fine after this date. So we've had notice of violations before. They don't want to fine us, but it's just something to be aware of. I just wanted to share and be transparent with the council. You know, we're trying our best with what we have, and we'd rather do something it's good quality that'll help us and be a little late than rush through and do something crappy that they're going to end up wanting us to fix and correct and doesn't really help us, and we spend more time on it in the end. And the other thing is that, you know, the TMDL particularly has been around for almost 20 years, 15 years. So for a few months to be late, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal.
I'd like to add that the state declined to enforce and impose an extension on themselves for meeting the TMDL, if you recall, Angela.
Yes.
They let themselves off the hook.
Yes,
Okay?
as well
It's
as
not just a few
federal
days or weeks or
responsible
months
parties
behind.
too. So like BLM is just still getting their stuff together as
Exactly.
well. Yeah. Mhm.
Exactly. So, you know, yeah.
Is there anyone from the public who's not had a chance to speak that would like to go ahead and do public comment now? If not, we are ready to go ahead and adjourn then. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Taking
you
the time to be
guys.
here.
Thanks, Maria. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank
Bye,
you, everybody.
guys.
Bye.
Good work.
Thank you. You okay, Andrew? Do you have a question?